Hi, and this is really a two-part vlog on the nature of gear as rewards in World of Warcraft. In the second part, I want to talk about the motivation to run Mythic Raiding, very much inspired by Asmongold's recent video on the effort and reward balance that's led him to discontinue in Mythic Progress for a while. However, in this first part, I'm looking at the changing relationship WoW players have with gear upgrades. Now, it used to be the case that good gear was always good gear. In vanilla, if you ran Molten Core and obtained a full set of Tier 1 gear, and then stopped playing until the end of the expansion, it would still be good gear. It wouldn't be as good as the raiders who continued progressing through the other tiers, of course, but it would be better than the general casual player base. These days, that is no longer the case. Take, for example, someone who raided all of the first tier of Legion and obtained Mythic Nighthold gear, and then stopped playing. Now, their item level might be about 9-10, best case scenario. Well, this is less than anyone who was just soloed world content on Argus, who I could have a minimum of 9-10 in every slot if they use their Veiled Argonite with the vendor on board the Vindicar. And, you know, they're also likely to have the odd 930 piece after a few weeks from the Greater Invasion bosses if they completed those. To say nothing of the relic upgrades from the Netherlight Crucible. In fact, I just dinged my Shaman a couple of weeks ago, and within a few sessions of play, it's now nearly 930 item level. I did this entirely through casual content, so no mythic dungeons or raids other than LFR. So, our mythic raider who stopped after the first tier now would come back to be considered poorly geared. We no longer move from tier of content to tier of content at our own pace. It's now done at the pace of the patches. Going back to vanilla and even TBC, you progressed onto the next tier of raiding when you'd pretty much finished the other one. By and large, at any rate. Sure, there were some situations like raid groups that would move on to Nax before they'd completed Anchorage in full, but they would have cleared a number of those bosses at least. Now a new tier comes out and all raiding guilds abandon the previous one to move into the next at exactly the same time, regardless of their progress on the previous tier. This is because the different difficulties allow you to complete the next one at some level, and because the gear rewards are greater, it encourages you to do that. For example, you get just as good quality gear from completing normal and Taurus as you do from running Mythic to Sargeras, and it's a lot easier. So all this begs the question in my mind, why is gear such a powerful motivator when it all becomes mundane in half a year and even poor a year later? It's one thing for the power of gear to be diminished when a new expansion comes out, but when this process happens several times each expansion with new catch-up gear being thrust in, I wonder why it has such a draw. Of course, we also probably need to consider what quality of gear even means to people. What most people seem to understand is item level. That is the in-game measure of the quality of gear. Of course, it's a very ineffective measure, but it's one that most people use. As an example, in a recent Azeroth review, my weekly live discussions that I run on Tuesdays mostly with viewers, people were pointing out that they had higher item level than I did, without ever having done any mythic bosses in Antorus at a time when I'd killed 6. Now, when I simmed some of these people, my DPS was simming about 50% more than some of these characters. In other words, I was able to do way more damage on a DPS to DPS comparison, but my item level was significantly lower. So the item level may have been higher, but the effectiveness of the gear was nowhere near up to that standard. This is because raid gear includes strong set bonuses on gear, with other pieces potentially being better itemized, including relics, legendaries, trinkets, all of which can produce a large variation in power, even when their item levels are the same. But very few people have any measure of the quality of their gear other than item level, and so that's the key factor. It's what people ask for, minimum values of for pugs, and even personal loot can't be traded if the one wanting it to give it away doesn't have an item of at least equal item level in their possession. The game is telling us very clearly that item level is king. Why wouldn't you want to equip it if it's your highest piece? So most players chase after item level with their gear, despite knowing that in a few months' time they'll be able to obtain the same item level gear by running easier content, with the potential exception of when you've got to the last raid of the expansion. The real value of gear is that it allows you to access an ever-increasing challenge of content. But when very few of these people take steps to push themselves up the content curve, what are they doing it for? Of course, some don't. They chase achievements or transmog for cosmetic styles that they can still use years later. This makes a lot more sense to me. But the idea of chasing gear upgrades for the sake of gear upgrades is a bit weird when you think about it. Do people do it because it seems to be what everyone else considers successful progress of their character? Is it a mass compulsion that we're all following like sheep, or is there another reason? Is it simply because the game doesn't have another way that people think is adequate to measure the progress of their character at level cap, even with the alternative system of artifact level that we've had in Legion? So like I said, there is a second part to this vlog which I'll be uploading later this week. I hope you found it interesting so far. If you did, please give it a like and post your own thoughts in the comments below, which I may be able to follow up with in this Sunday's mailbox. If this is your first time to the channel, then give it a check out, subscribe if you're interested, and until next time, I'll see you later.